Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul.
and Jolene.
And today we're talking about red herrings in your RPGs.
And those are not the fish, by the
No,
way.
I think red herrings are fish, though.
Herrings are fish, yes.
Though why a red herring is a false lead or something, I have no idea. But that's what we're talking about today. It's something that I have used and something that I have seen done or that have been written in RPG modules where it says this is a red herring and it has it in box text. And it's usually a little blurb, not very big. Maybe
Was this a recent module
paragraph.
or
Oh
an
no,
old
this is
module?
old. Yeah, we're talking about modules that's like 20 years old.
Okay, just checking.
Though I don't know. You're right. I don't know if it's still something that's used much today.
Well, I looked it up on the
Inner
inner
tube?
tubes,
Yes.
and it is
It is what?
used
Well,
to varying degrees.
the success. And see, that's what I was saying is that I've had various levels of success using red herrings. I remember in this one game, I was running my moderate Dresden files. And there was something that happened. I honestly I don't remember, but I do remember what the player said, which I thought was funny and kind of disheartening at the same time, because they were discussing what lead to follow, and this one guy just goes, "I think this is a red. This one the current topic that they had we're talking about. I can think this is a red herring." And I'm like, "Whoa, was it that obvious?" Right? So, and
Why was it like totally different? Like
I guess it was right.
go down this street, go down that street.
No. So what happens is I'm not spoiling the adventure at all, but this happens in Monterey, California, and it's in Cannery Row. The game takes place, and they were investigating deaths at the Cannery Row on Cannery Row. And then there was they were at a parking garage. This was the scene. They were in a parking garage, and these two guys were fighting, like having a fisticuffs fighting. And then the characters show up, and then one of them jumps off the roof, as of a 3-story
Parking garage.
parking garage. Even though I believe it's only really 2 stories, maybe. But anyway, so he
It
jumps.
is 3 stories.
Oh, it is 3 stories. So he jumps off the roof, and they both look down, and he runs, and he lands on the ground and runs, and and all the investigators, i.e., the players, are like, "What the hell just happened?" When they get back to their headquarters was a coffee house, and so when they get back to the coffee house, they're talking about things, and they're like, should we follow that lead? Should we keep questioning the person that they found? So the person they found who was fighting, he was all cut up and bleeding, but he didn't want people to call the police, and he was really didn't want to say anything. He just took off, right? He just like, I don't want to talk, but they figured out who he was because he dropped his wallet or something. So they're like, so they had a lead, but they go, well, I don't know. So that one guy goes, I think it's a red herring. I think we shouldn't even bother with that. And so I'm like, which in a certain sense, it would have opened up the more weirder aspects of the whole Monterey Dresden world. But it was a con game, so I can see how they were like, we have a limited number of real hours to solve this case. And that guy was like, I don't think this has anything to do with what the main story is.
Right.
And that's when I started questioning whether I should use red herrings and false leads, and whether they should be used or at all, because it kind of I'm like, I was quite affected by that guy's statement that it was an out of game statement, kind of, or maybe he said it as a character. I don't know. But I thought it was interesting that he would just openly tell everybody else, oh, that's a red herring. I don't think we should follow that lead.
That is interesting. So, in my research on
Yeah.
red herrings in role-playing games, this one guy says you probably really shouldn't use red herrings because your players are going to need you to put the clue that you want them to get in 3 separate places because that's how bad they are at figuring out where they're supposed to go. Other people, of course, disagreed with him and said, you shouldn't call your players stupid.
Stupid.
But I can see how difficult it is in a mystery to, like, whether it's Monterey Dresden or any other mystery game, especially some of the ones that we've recently done. It is kind of difficult as a player to figure out which clue or where the clue wants to take you. Which one is the clue as you're doing the investigation? And maybe it's because I'm playing with these guys who have these vivid imaginations and look at the clues and go, well, this could mean, and they list off 20 things, right?
That could be a problem.
And that's what this one guy is talking about. He says it's the thing is that people are not, it's not, each person isn't going to have a hard time following your clues. It's when they all get together, then they start talking to each other and they talk each other into, oh, well, maybe that's not the way we should go. Maybe we should go this way. And as they're talking, they totally distort the clues that have been given to them.
Right. That has happened in many games where somebody will have the right clue, they have the right idea that I'm thinking is going to solve the mystery, and they're convinced otherwise when they get together and start hashing out the clues that they found or the information. I'm not going to say clues. Once they start discussing the information and what that information means.
Right. So if you're doing a murder mystery or someone's been killed and you're trying to figure it out, that kind of thing. But I compare it to analysis paralysis
Whoa.
in D&D fighting, right? Where when you come upon a scene and the GM says roll initiative and all of the guys, everybody rolls initiative, they get really excited, and then they think about what's going to happen. Okay, we're going to go into this battle. And I've been sitting at tables with these same guys for years. Some of them are my sons and his friends and parents, and they tend to go way over the top about what could happen, right? They come up with these elaborate plans that they want to do and stuff, and it makes it harder when the actual action starts, because then they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And then, they get thrown off, right?
Well, that's going to happen at any time. So I think you're right. I think that kind of thinking out everything is probably, I've let players, and I've let you guys, as the GM for you guys, I've let you guys do that all the time, where you guys I give you guys almost all the time you need to plan everything, when I should really cut it short. I said, you know what? The big bad guy is coming. You don't have time to iron out every little detail. And then the thing with best laid plans of war, right, or tactics or whatever, is it goes out the window as soon as the first die is cast,
Right.
so to speak.
As soon as the first arrow is thrown.
Yes, is
Shot.
Yes, and so let loose, and that's what happens. That's what happens. Everything does not go according to plan. Sometimes you start missing your attacks, and your character that planned to be able to be at a certain spot or be able to do certain things is not going to be able to do certain things. So,
which is a lot closer to real life.
Well, yeah, that's true. But it happens in games, though.
Right.
It happens in games when they try to plan out too many things. This domino effect in their way of thinking. I'm looking at it, is that they think this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and so all their ducks in a row is going to fall. But that's not where things work in real life and in games, right?
Well, and just sitting at those tables, listening to these people plot out these things, I can see you sitting there with a smug smile on your face going, my monsters are going to come and get you no matter what. So taking that idea of this analysis paralysis before battle
Right.
into clues, or you're interviewing a suspect or you're interviewing a witness, right?
Right.
And you're trying to figure out which way you're supposed to go next.
Yeah.
If you allow the players to discuss it amongst themselves, then they may or may not go with the clue. Might be right there which way you're supposed to go, but they all decide to turn left because George said that. I think that this is what it means, and everybody goes, okay, I got it.
Well, yeah, you're right. Some people have they're very good at presenting their
It's charisma.
their view of
Yeah.
the situation, whether it's charisma or a way of laying out the argument, saying, "Oh, see, this makes the most sense."
Yeah.
And then having that more convincing player convince other players of their idea, and it's perfectly valid. It happens all the time. It happens at work, in real life, when people have these, and they're able to articulate their position better than people who have the better idea, but may not be able to talk about or be able to present their idea in the same way. This person will be able to convince the rest of the group, oh, this is the best way to do it. And it may not be. And that's what happens in games a lot. It's like the person with the best way of articulating their position and being able to say, well, see, point A, point B, the answer is obviously D. And the person who's saying C go, well, hold on.
Wait.
And then they don't listen to them, and then they go on to this,
On a side quest.
Side quest.
A red herring.
A red herring. But sometimes it's just, you don't even mean to have red herring. Some players sometimes latch on to things that you weren't expecting. So that can happen at any point. And then red herrings is even worse because it's kind of something you actually give them, the players. And then if they latch onto it, and sometimes they're like a pit bull, they won't freaking let go of it. They're like, this has to mean something. And you're like, no, you guys figured it out. They figured it out, but they think it has a deeper meaning, right? There's more to the story. This is just a cover story that just barely scrape off the outer layer, and then they go, there's more to this, what's going on.
So when I was doing research on this,
Yeah.
I came across a couple different articles, and one of them was talking about how red herrings are good because it makes the game more exciting. It gives the players more options. It opens up the world.
Yeah.
And when you don't want the players, and then there was this other article, this guy asking a question. He says, I have this bad guy in town, right? He's the sheriff.
Okay.
And you know that he's paying off this band of brigands once a month. And he goes, I don't want it to be such a straightforward game that my players are just going to go, oh, well, he's the bad guy. Let's go kill him, or let's go arrest him, or whatever, right?
Take care of the situation.
He goes, I want to give him more things to do and maybe throw him off the track. So he was asking for people's ideas of red herrings. And so these guys, of course, these GMs come up with all these different ideas, right? You know, you could say, well, maybe he's being blackmailed. Maybe you give him a clue that there's more to the story.
Right.
And he was like, I love these ideas. I don't want to go too deep into too many red herrings, but the idea that he's being blackmailed by somebody, then maybe it makes the players have different choices. Are you just going to kill him because he's doing this? Or are you going to try to help him so he's not going to be blackmailed anymore? And it brings up other choices, right?
Right. A classic, it's probably been used in a movie because it sounds so familiar. Is like his son is in the, at the ranch, this rancher who's a real bad guy's ranch. And he's really basically held hostage. And the sheriff gives some validity to the cattle rancher's actions, and that's why he's able to, run roughshod over the sheriff, and the sheriff allows his men, this rancher's men, to
do whatever
have
they
too
want.
good of a time at the town. So you're right. And then the idea is that the players are now, they have a moral quandary, right? They could take care of the sheriff, but is that really going to solve the problem? Probably not. Or they could try to help the sheriff, like, well, we'll get your son back, and then you with the sheriff can go tackle the cattle ranchers or whatever. So I think you're right. So those type of things can, but are those red herrings? I think they're more like actual side quests in a certain sense, or just more information to the story. Where a red herring, I think, is like something that leads to nowhere, which I think, depending on the game. So to me, red herrings can be used in the game and can be used well, but I think in certain cases, a red herring, like it all depends on the type of game you're playing. In an investigative game, red herrings can really mess up the game. Where a red herring in a fantasy RPG, adventurous, epic game, they're more like side quests or more something that preoccupy the characters and maybe take a little time off from the main quest that they're doing and give them, like you said, give it a little bit of variety. Give the idea that they're just not on this, linear track to track down the bad guy from A to B to C to D. There's something else that's going on. There's other things that can happen and other events that could make the player's game world seem more alive or more real in a certain sense.
There's not a downside, but a challenging side to putting out red herrings,
Yes.
right? Because then what if your players decide, oh, I want to go after that.
Yeah.
And you're going, oh crap, I have nothing planned for that. It's like the NPC they decide to talk to that you haven't fleshed out, right?
Exactly, and that does happen. I have been in games where the red herring kind of like takes center stage, and I have, let's say, 10 pages of notes about where the game is supposed to go, and just a paragraph about this red herring, and you just got to make stuff up, right? You got to go with the flow, or really end the red herring. They can solve the situation, and then they can get back to, oh, okay, so this isn't really part of the main, and the characters and the players realize that this is just something that led to nowhere, or maybe I don't like saying nowhere because it kind of makes it seem like it was a waste of time, and I don't think red herrings should be a waste of time. I think if you're gonna put them in your game, they should characters and the players should have some some sense of accomplishment, even if it didn't have to deal with the center story.
Right.
So I think that's where red herrings are best utilized, and that's where they work best. It's not when they just like completely waste your time, right? They spend an hour
Running
of
to
of,
a brick wall
of a
and then
4 or 5 hour game, and it doesn't lead or help in figuring out what the main storyline is. And that was another thing I was thinking is red herrings are pretty easy to deal with if you're on a long campaign, right? A long campaign, you can follow a red herring for months, or well, I wouldn't say years, but hopefully not years, but let's say quite a few sessions, where if you're playing in a con game or a one shot, where red herrings can really detract or take the players off the track of the real part of the story, or the real part of the game.
well, and it'll depend on who the GM is too, because some GMs, if you go off on a red herring, will just go that way, and the rest of the game will be that way.
Right, that's true.
And you're trying to figure out, did I take a left turn when I should have taken a right turn, and why am I here?
Why am I in Albuquerque?
Well, yeah. Was this the way that we were supposed to do it, or
Again, you're right. I think people who use red herrings or GMs should be very adept at being able to handle things on the fly. I talk about spontaneity, and also what is that other term? Improvisation. If you're really talented in that and have that skill, I think you could throw in red herrings left and right. Like I said, the red herring that sort of maybe gives you a little bit of information about the main story, at least points you in the direction saying, okay, this guy is definitely not the person that we should be looking at. If you keep dangling that, Mr. Robertson is acting a little funny, and
in front of people,
and they keep investigating Mr. Robertson, and Mr. Robertson is just doing his daily thing, and they spend too much time on Mr. Robertson when it doesn't help him at all, or you don't like slam the door shut saying, okay, this guy either knows nothing about it. I would definitely like throw a little clue in Mr. Robertson's direction, right? So if they do follow Mr. Robertson, which is basically a red herring, it gives them an idea of, it helps them out in their main plot.
that goes back to what the first guy said, that you got to put clues in 3 or 4 places so that people can find them.
Well,
right?
I agree with that, because I'm terrible at clue games.
Dispensing clues.
Oh no, playing them, right? If there's a clue, I'm like,
Was that a clue?
yeah, or figuring out what the clue means. That's another thing. So if you're in a group of people, like if you were a group of 5 like me, who sometimes like look at a clue and I'm like, I don't know what that means, then maybe the sprinkling of more than one clue is definitely needed. But there's other players who, like, probably somebody like you who reads a lot of mystery novels. Oh, I'm gonna digress a little bit. So Jolene reads a ton of books, right? And she reads really quick. I mean, compared to me, I'll take a month to read a book. Well, she'll take 2 days, maybe 3 days at the most, if she really likes it. And she reads a lot of
Mysteries.
and she watches a lot of mystery shows. So the worst thing is to watch a mystery show with her, because in the first 5 minutes of the mystery show, oh, he's the one that did it. I'm like, what? And I was like, sometimes it's incredulous. I'm like, no way. And dun at the end of the movie, at the end of the show, it indeed is that guy. I'm like, oh man.
I try not to tell Saul.
I know. So actually, the last time she go, oh, and I'm like, and I looked at her, and she goes, I won't tell you what I think. And then, I think you were mistaken, right? It threw you for a loop. One show, and I was like, oh wow. I that was pretty cool because the person you said was the one. I think it ended up dead or wasn't the one. So I think it's pretty cool. But so somebody like if you have a group of Jolenes in your mystery game, you don't have to sprinkle 10 clues around everywhere to get them to go the right direction. They'll pick up the clue and they'll be able to, okay, and they'll be able to ascertain which way direction to go or the right direction to go, and don't have too much of a problem. Players like me, where you're like, oh man, what does this mean? I don't even know. It would
That's
be
when
better.
the gumshoe system comes in good, right? Where you get into the room, you get the clue. If you roll good, you get more of the clue.
Right.
All you have to do is have a skill and something close
Right.
to it, right?
Correct. So yeah, so we have talked about Gumshoe as far as mysteries, and they even had. I think that was one game that had red herrings. I think in one of the adventures that I remember reading about was the investigative game, and they'll say this is a red herring. I mean, it was really weird, but it was like, but I wish I could remember where exactly what adventure it was. But they're very good. I mean, they're very good. They're very popular in mystery novels, right? I think red herring comes from, I think it's author Conan Doyle's book, right? I think that's where the term comes from, maybe
I don't know. I learned it in some class
English.
in college.
Oh, yeah. I just remember. I think I remember some TV show that was like, or TV movies that dealt with
Like Columbo?
Holmes. What's his name?
Oh, Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle writing. I think I remember reading as a kid.
You could discuss it with Felipe because he's a
Yeah,
expert on that.
Yes, I remember reading when I was a kid, a condensed book of like I forget what it was, and one of the titles was the red herring. And I'm like, At the time, I had no clue as what red herring meant. I go, why is he talking about a red fish? But there we go. I think red herrings can be really good in certain games, and other games, I think it's just a good distraction for the players if it's done well and they don't spend too much time, if the players don't feel like they wasted time.
Well, I think that if you give them a red herring, I think the idea of having them find something at the end, whether it's a clue or something else, say they go on a side quest and they come up with a chest full of gold or something like that,
Or something that might help them.
or something that might a weapon that might help them fight whatever it is, or figure
Right.
out what it is, or
That's
there's
exactly.
a clue at the end of the red herring that sends them back towards the real road.
Correct. Yes, and that's pretty good. That's a pretty good idea, and I think the biggest thing is you don't want the players to believe that they just wasted a bunch of time.
Yeah, because wasting 2 hours in a game that lasts for 4 hours.
Right. That's definitely not good, and nobody likes the idea of wasting time. I mean, it just is like whether you're playing a role playing game or I don't know, or whatever else you're doing, or building a project, and then somebody says, "Oh, scrap that. We don't need it." Well, I just spent 5 hours on this thing. That's okay. We're going a different direction. Oh, okay, thanks. So nobody wants to feel that, and I truly believe that when you use a red herring, it shouldn't be a complete waste of time. People should feel that even if they were led astray or went down the wrong road, that somehow they got something out of it, whether it's a clue or something that'll help them farther down the line. Something like I don't know, a ring of this or a ring of that, or
I don't know. I would say that if they don't get anything out of it, then they may feel that the GM is being a little hard on them, right? On their group.
yeah.
Versus the GM going, well, they wanted to go this way, so I'm going to let them. And when they're done with this, we'll go back to the regular adventure. I don't know. There's two perspectives, right?
Right. I think I personally would not want the players to look at me going, "You're a freaking jerk."
Exactly.
Right? And when that happens, I don't feel good. And like I said, if the players feel that way, they don't feel good. And the whole point of playing role playing games is for
Everybody to have fun.
For most people, is to have fun and have a good time. And I believe people believing that they wasted time is not having fun. So I think that's the long picture of the game. So what games would I use red herrings? Right? I think I would use them pretty sparingly in like well, not sparingly, but use them quite a bit in a mystery game if I have a lot of time. For example, if I'm running a home game, investigation game like that Carnival Row game, which I was thinking was going to be maybe a 6-hour games tops at a convention. when we were online, it lasted 3 4-hour sessions. So it was a 12-hour game. But those sessions online where there was a lot of chit chatter, and so let's condense it. It was still like even if you guys wasted 2 hours of chit chatting and goofing off, it was still a 10-hour game compared to a 6-hour game that I thought it was going to be.
We were not sure where we were going most of the time.
Well, that was my fault. I think the clues weren't strong enough or didn't have that huge arrow pointing in the right direction. And two, I don't think that there was any red herrings in that game, but there were certain things that you guys latched onto that I don't believe was a red herring, but you just latched onto them that led you guys astray sometimes. And then it was particularly tough for me to write that big old huge cargo ship in the right direction, and I get stuck in the Suez Canal. An allusion to some event that happened a while ago. So in a mystery game, I think it's great. In a fantasy game, I think little side quests and stuff that maybe help make the world more real, even if it's not has nothing to do with the main quest, whatever that is. Whether it's like, let's say, go defeat this blue dragon that's messing with the Storm King.
If somebody wants you to kill a blue dragon, don't do it.
Or figure out what the blue dragon's up to, right? So, and then you're dealing with little Peter in the village of Hamlet, talking about how his brother gets all hairy and attacks people in the middle of the night.
So you have to stop and take care of that.
Yeah, as a player, if that happens, you're gonna feel some sort of accomplishment. You helped little Peter, but does it really help the main quest of dealing with what the blue dragon is up to?
No, but it does save the people in that town. So there you go.
I think that's probably important to save little kids and villagers from being eaten or turned into more werewolves.
Yes.
I think other games, I don't know, superhero games, red herrings. I don't know. I don't play a lot of superhero games. I don't think I've played a superhero game in years, 30 years probably, when I first tried Champions. Probably a little longer now. More like, I don't want to say 40 years, but I was a teenager when we tried Champions, and we never really played much after that. I think, like I said, it all depends on the type of game, and it all depends on your group and what your group is able to. Are they really good clue finders, or really good at understanding clues and what they might lead to, or are they a little bit more thick-headed like me, going, "Whoa, what does this mean?" Then you're stuck. I think red herrings are just a slight distraction. I think that's the key to them. If the red herring is taking too much time, it should become like integral part of your adventure and definitely lead to a resolution that helps the whole game end.
And that's up to the GM to do.
Right. And it's a lot to put on the GM. So I think if you're going to use them, red herrings, as a GM, you have to understand that anything could be a red herring, right? Because players can latch onto anything. But if you put something out and then the players really latch onto it, you have to be able to roll with that player's actions, those players' actions, where they really get really interested in that side quest thing.
You sounded like a hobbit there.
I know I did. I just was thinking of hobbits. And you're right. And I don't know. What about the Lord of the Rings? Was there any side quests in that one?
I think the whole movie was a side quest.
No, but did they ever get involved in other things other than taking the ring to?
They had to rescue Merry and Pippin.
That was quite a. That was. I don't know if that was a side quest. I guess I don't know what that would be.
It was part of the.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. No, I like to use that one as the Lord of the Rings as an example, but I don't think that has any really little side quests.
Maybe you shouldn't have used it as an example then.
Yeah, probably not. I think that's good.
This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
You have a good day.